Mission Graduate is an initiative designed to boost the number of college and university graduates and certificate holders by 60,000 in Albuquerque by the year 2020. Many top employers are backing the proposal, including P&M and Intel. Employers are encouraged to help, and employees get more education to help students explore careers, as well as make it easier for employees who are parents to support children in school. But many questions remain. Will the jobs be there for those grads? Can they afford school when the lottery scholarship program faces severe financial issues? Joining us to talk about this and other news of the week is one of our line regulars, Rob Nicoleski of the New Mexico Watchdog. On returning after a long dry spell, Stephen Spitz, it's our fault, here from KUNM Radio's New Mexico People and Places and Ideas. Good to see you. Another of our line regulars is back at the table, Attorney Sophie Martin. So good to see Attorney Sophie Martin. And also returning to the line after a while, not a long while, it's independent journalist Laura Paskus. Now, Sophie, start with you. We have some serious issues in the state with dropouts. Certainly, we've covered that here in this building many times. Workforce readiness. The ambition of this, so how does it hit you, the 60,000? Not the, can we make it or not? That's not quite the point. But something's in motion here. Is this the right motion here as you see it?
It feels to me like finally we see a group coalescing around a specific goal, and I commend the United Way here in Albuquerque for bringing this group together and for really targeting something that they and the group think is accomplishable. And I want to really highlight the idea of one of the members of that group who said, you know, we've really been doing battle for a while now over, do we need to get the jobs first? Do we need to get the education first? And at the end of the day, I'd rather have a bunch of highly educated New Mexicans who maybe do have to move out of state to find jobs. And let me just clarify, nobody wants to see that happen. Then to have us work hard to bring the jobs and have a group of New Mexicans who can't qualify for them. Better to educate first in that chicken and egg equation and make sure that New Mexicans have that quality of education and then address the jobs issue. And I commend him and the group for that.
I don't think there'd be much argument about that, Rob. That's a good risk. If there's a risk to be taken, that seems like the better way to go.
Yeah, my impressions about this are a couple of things. First of all, I think it is kind of a chicken and the egg question. And the other question I've got is a lot of this comes from sort of the ground up. Yes, we can try to get more college graduates. That's a laudable goal. But in order to get more college graduates, we have to do a better job educating our kids on the elementary level, junior high school level.
That's right.
The other question I've got is that I would like to see, and I think this is a good goal, but I think it's important not to lose focus on just concentrating on university graduates, especially junior college graduates, trade school graduates. That's something that I think that the state has missed in the last few years. We do have a population that is undereducated. I think maybe a better transition for them, for a lot of students, would be to say, instead of trying to become a neurosurgeon, how about becoming a tradesman?
Meet people where they are.
And to their credit, the plan does involve not just the university diplomas, but also training for the trades and professional certification. The different levels are available through this. It's not just 60,000 diplomas.
Exactly. But I just want to make sure that emphasis is not just on the kids who are going to get a liberal arts degree.
I appreciate that point, because there's tension there. For some folks, it's university or bust, and they look down at everything else. And for some others, you meet folks where they are. You know, and Laura, that's always been a long-standing thing here. You move people up the ladder of education a little bit, they'll take the initiative to take those steps on their own later. Graduate work as such as it goes along. Your sense of this as you read it, is it something that will pay off benefits early, midterm, much later than 2020? How should we be looking at this and considering it?
I think if we're successful, long-term would be amazing. We would have a workforce here that could be really focused on local solutions and local communities. I mean, we're facing so many challenges, whether it's mental health issues or climate change, and we need educated New Mexicans, young people who are willing to tackle all of these challenges. I really agree with Rob, too, that we need to be if we want these kids to go and get professional certificates or university degrees, we need to be focused on our very youngest people as well. So I definitely see it as a long-term project.
You know, Stephen, it's interesting when you think about the ladder. The ladder's being reshaped almost daily in our culture. You know, kids are not quite sure. I've got two in college right now. I tell them all the time,
How
don't
you afford
panic.
it.
I know, right? It's like, don't panic. Don't panic about making a career decision. Get educated first.
Yeah.
You can figure out the other part second. Yeah. But to Rob's point, sometimes it's better to know where you're going with a roadmap early and to get there. Does this encompass both of those as you see it?
Yes, and
Yeah.
I guess I agree with everything that's been said so far. The one thing I think that a lot of people don't realize is New Mexico actually spends more on college education than on a percentage basis than almost any other state in the country. That's not the problem. The problem's at the other end. 71% of our kids are born to Medicaid families, disadvantaged families, single families. Those kids are going to grow up with problems unless there's some kind of program. There's only 3% of them in a home visiting program. We have very little pre-K. 15% of our kids about, one of the lowest in the country. So
Do you see those things as potential roadblocks to the success of this program?
absolutely. I think there's all kinds of things you can do, but the single most important thing you can do is early childhood. I mean really early, prenatal to 1. Get the mother and child to attach. That's actually more significant than IQ, achievement test scores. And these programs have been shown to work. So if I were going to say anything to these people, I would say concentrate on early childhood. It's expensive. It's like $3,000 a kid. But these programs in double-blind studies, randomized studies, have been shown to work, shown to get, states 4 and 5 to 1 returns. States, not the kids, not the parents.
This has
the
been
states.
It's been a big argument in our legislature for years,
It
of
has
course.
been.
And Rob, it's
Right.
interesting to hear Stephen say this because you've talked about this many times on our show as well. That idea that if the ecosystem of how a person is whole and ready to learn is not fixed before they get in the classroom, you know, the chance of successful outcomes for that kid are very much diminished. Is this an opportunity now to look at those other things that Stephen's talking about now that we have this in place? Can we back up and?
I think so, but,
Okay.
but another statistic to look at as well is that something like 60% of the students at the University of New Mexico need remedial training.
That's right.
I mean, that points to the problems at the elementary, junior high school, and high school levels.
Right.
And I don't, even though it's a laudable plan and I'm in favor of it, I think we need to keep our eye on the ball and to make sure that we're not incentivizing kids who can't clear that hurdle. 60% of them need remedial instruction, and a large percentage. I think a recent news story showed that a large percentage of kids who default on student loans are ones after their first semester of their freshman year.
That's right.
Clearly, they're not able to hack it
That's right.
educationally. You're not doing anyone any favors by trying to encourage them to do something they can't.
I appreciate you making that point. In fact, in the article that we all got, reading about this and others, there was a great quote about the idea that a high school of Sophie has just left in May. And then come September, we expect them to do this huge spin up into adulthood and manage finances, manage their life choices. And there's got to be a bridge there somewhere.
It's a tremendous transition, and one that we need to make sure that kids are prepared to make.
Right.
And I think that it highlights as well that the compact between society, education, and students has really shifted, let's say, since the 70s, the 60s and 70s, when a college education was a much less expensive proposition. You didn't go into lifelong debt in order to get your college education. And admittedly, fewer people were getting them. But you also, if you didn't get a college degree, could go into a stable blue-collar career that would take care of you for the rest of your life, and you could expect to retire from that career and have a good, solid retirement. So our social compact as a whole has changed. So we're asking kids when they graduate from high school to sign on to 30 years of debt. And we really haven't prepared them for that. And to a certain extent, that debt is predicated on the fact that we've changed how we fund our universities. So we have a really large bucket of responsibilities that we need to take care of as we look at the simple proposition of pre-K to graduate degree or pre-K to college degree.
Good on everybody here. This is good leadership at work here. I really like this program. CNM, the other people that are involved with this, good stuff there. In a moment, we're back to talk about the history of African Americans here in New Mexico.